Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk with Ethan. And today I'm here with Tony Shayne, who's a professor at Stanford University. Thank you so much, Tony, for joining me today.
Absolutely. Anything I can do for the youthful, theater-minded people, I'm happy to do.
Thank you so much. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name is Tony Shayne, and I go by he, him. I am a professor of lighting and producing at Stanford University, but I also am a freelance lighting designer, producer, and production manager. Currently working on a few web-based events because that's where we are in the world. But before that was working in opera, working in dance, touring, that sort of thing.
Nice. Could you explain the classes you teach at Stanford? Some of what they're
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure. So I just wrapped up teaching producing, which basically is just trying to show the breadth of what's out there. A lot of what my background is not traditional theater. So I work on dance and opera. I work on live events like these these touring museums and stuff like that. So a lot of my students who get passionate about working in the entertainment industry through Broadway or their local theaters don't really understand that they can take that theater degree outside. So we do a producing course that covers music festivals, that covers film and documentaries and all that sort of stuff. So that's that class. And I also teach intro to design, just the basics of being creative. I teach lighting design, which is how to take that creativity in lighting and actually transform it into a light plot and drawings and concept. And then this year I'm teaching a new course as we're moving online, trying to be a little bit more creative about how we do things, a design class on movement and music. So again, trying to focus on design, but again, not focus on things like, your traditional Pinter plays or your Broadway musicals, things that are just inspired by music, like a jazz concert or a dance recital, or maybe you have no music, but you have to still light on the body. And that's what I'm really interested in. And I think it's gonna be a new fun class to teach.
Nice. How'd you be interested? How'd you become a teacher?
So I went to a private school here in Los Angeles that it was like a kind of a college prep class. And I realized through that education, I just became so passionate about learning. And then as I was starting to look at my college career and my post-college career, I realized how inspiring my professors were, how amazing they were on like impact on my career, and just I realized I just wanted to do that for other people. So I would be on a job site where I'd be working with underclassmen. I'd work with local high schools or elementary schools and just kind of do a guest lecturing. And then as I got my graduate degree, I realized, oh, I can actually go back into college and teach, and I can just work with young students. So I taught a couple courses in grad school and loved it. And then when an opportunity arose at Stanford, I took it. But I also feel really fortunate. I probably worked in about 13 universities in California and
Wow.
others. So I've worked with so many different students.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so how do you balance the roles of lighting, and producing and teaching?
So I think that the teaching aspect is always right. So if you're working on a lighting design at a professional theater, you're either being taught or they're teaching you. If you're in an environment where you're working with students, you have to be able to not only do your craft if you're on tour and you need to put your lighting design up, but also you have to work with the student board ops and the student technical directors and the student carpenters and flymen. And you find opportunity to say like, hey, you might already know this, but let me just show you this. And if you don't know this now, you've learned this thing, or you've learned a different way to do that, or
Mm-hmm.
and so I look for all of that. I also think it's really important to like realize what position you're in. So as a producer, I know that I can't make design decisions. That's not part of what I'm being hired to. I can be
Mm-hmm.
educated into the design decision, and I can work with the designers and say like, oh, I know what you're trying to do. Maybe that's more expensive than what we have, but I think there's another alternative. Or I can be the bad cop and be like, I know exactly what you're trying to do, and that's not what's right for this project, and it's more expensive, or it's dangerous, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really important on some of the projects I work on. I have to realize like I'm not the lighting designer on this. I could hate the lighting on it. I could hate the costume design. I can hate the scene design, but I'm not allowed to speak on it. I have to make sure that they're supported, their craft is made, and if the director doesn't like it, then I need to help the director and then the designers navigate that. And I think that's a really important kind of task.
Nice. Have you done line design? Have you done the line design, or have you have not dabbled in that?
Oh yeah, so I do lighting design primarily for dance and dance theater. So I work with individuals across the U.S. and I've done some touring internationally, where we take a lot of these smaller dance pieces and take them on tour. We develop them, and they're always like devised work. So I did my first Nutcracker I think like 3 years ago. It was great, but I've really tried to avoid doing a lot of those things. So.
Mm.
I worked with an artist, Sheetal Gandhi. I think there's a few images on my portfolio that like show some of my work with her. And she's an Indian American artist that we do these devised theater works where she does Kathak, she sings, she does modern dance, and we do these beautiful designs. I've worked with Rosanna Gamson on some pieces where we do more of a storytelling. So unfortunately, we were doing a lighting design that was supposed to premiere in March, and the whole lighting design was with flashlights.
Oh wow.
None of the lighting was done by me. All the design was done by all the lighting was done by the performers. And so we were in development with all of these different LED sources, and it was super dark and mysterious. And it was based on the story of Hansel and Gretel, and paired with like movement. This design that you can see is a piece I did for Maura Kerr, who's a choreographer and artistic director for Tiny Pistol. And it's starting what you'll see, I got the nickname for the Prince of Darkness in college. I think a huge part of that lighting design is really about how dark you can make it and really playing with the shadow. So I try to do a lot with single sources. I try to do a lot with darkness. This is a piece I did with Sheetal Gandhi that premiered in Tampa Bay, Florida, and then here again on West Coast premiere at REDCAT. And I just love trying to create as dark of a mood as possible. So one of the things I like to do is take my designs, whether they're for dance pieces like that or for art installations or anything else, and really push the limits of what I'm trying to do as far as the darkness and slowly build up from there. So design starts with one light on, then two lights on, then three lights on, rather than start with 10 lights on and then try to start taking away.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that there's always an Occam's razor approach to it, right? You start with a little bit and you build up, and you have to learn to trust each other. So especially in the world of dance, choreographers find a lighting designer and you work for them forever. In the world of theater, it might be a little bit different, but in dance, like you find a common language and then you realize, oh, they're asking for it to be brighter. What they really mean is they need to see their face. So rather than turn everything brighter, I just need to put more light on their face and build that. But I also think it's really interesting because when I get brought on to do other things, I try to bring my aesthetic to that. So I'll do a lot of color, I'll do a lot of shadow, I'll do very distinct angles. And so now that I'm doing more plays, it's really, a learning process for me to also try to do that where they're going to want to see that for the Cherry Orchard or for Raising in the Sun or something where I still get to be creative, but I need to also make sure that it feels realistic.
Exactly. How would you say dance lighting is different than like theater lighting?
Well, you can see you really have a lot of different tools when it comes to color and shape and mood that you may not necessarily have in traditional plays. So in a play, you need to make it realistic, right? You need to be in that living room, out in that park. You need to be at nighttime. Where in dance, you have a little bit more suggestiveness. So you can be emotionally scared. You can be emotionally excited. You can be really just awkward. You can be these emotions, and that can happen at any time of day. That can happen in any manner of way. But there's something that you can then evoke. I also try to do what I've kind of said before, like an Occam's razor approach to my design. So I also like to do just like one lighting cue for 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's really good to then say, this is what it feels like for this piece, and then the dance will exist within it. And sometimes that's hard to do when you're doing a musical theater piece where you need a beat.
Exactly.
Change, flash, flash, flash. I fell in love with theater through opera, and opera does 50 light cues in 3 hours. And they really still do a beautiful job. It's just they make the right cue and they let the performers perform within it. And that's kind of the way that I've approached my design.
That's I think dance can get really deep, right? And this, like you said, like the emotion, there are different ways of playing emotion, and lighting plays a big role in that.
I think that one of the reasons I like design for dance is that you get to play a lot more. You get to try things. I've worked on some dance pieces here in Los Angeles for like contemporary dance company where I'm like, I don't think this is going to work, but I'm just going to try it. And you do it, and it's like half of that worked and half of it didn't. But I can try
Yeah.
something else. At Stanford, when I first got hired there, one of the mental things that I decided is that not only am I going to teach students, but I'm going to have to learn myself. And especially since now I'm doing cabaret, I'm doing Raisin in the Sun, I'm doing Golden Age plays. Like I have to try new things. So like this cabaret, one of the things that I had to learn was how do I just lean into the fact that the floor is 19 different colors? How do
Yeah.
I do follow spots in a black box space that's a runway style? And so I tried a bunch of things. In this particular play, what I did was I took Source 4 cyc lights that are meant to be shown on the backdrop or on some, on a cyc, and I put them as footlights. And I was able to use the 90-degree angle to do a nice sharp cut off the floor and then uplight someone at the same time. So I got footlights that I would never be able to do in professional theater because I'd be too scared to try it. And that sort of risk taking, especially when you come from a dance background, I think is a little bit more like, okay, I can try it and I know I can always change or I'll figure something else out. Having like 10 days of tech time is so different for me than working in dance where you do it all in a day. So just trying new things, I think it's a lot more fun in dance.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like experimentation is kind of the way to go, right? I mean, at least for your standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I fell into this industry by accident. I think there's some people who like wake up and their like parents are on stage or backstage and they're raised by the flyman and the stage manager, and that their first baby outfit is in black, right?
Yeah.
For me, I was a jock. I was smart as well, and I wanted to do some good. So I wanted to go into engineering or architecture, and I just kept making all these choices that somehow got me into theater. And so once I got into it, I fell in love with dance, and I didn't have that background of theater. So I just kind of was like figuring it out as I went along. I came at it from different angles. I was one of those people, as one of my professors described it, like one of the students would learn about electricity through reading about it, and I would learn about electricity by sticking my finger in the socket. Like I don't know it's going to work. You can tell me not to do something, and I'm not going to really understand it until I try it. And once I try it, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. Or
Exactly.
you learn like, okay, well, I could do it, but I need more time, or I can do it, but I need twice as much, or whatever that is, or I can do it, but I can only use that thing once. So what am I going to do for the other 99% of the show? And I like that better. I just like that. I don't like traditional plays where you have 700 lights, 500 movers, and a lot of safety. I'd rather have 16 lights and have to be creative around them.
Exactly. I like that. I mean, I do technical theater, right? It's like, I do, musicals. So it's like that. It's completely different than dance.
Yeah, as a sound person, you musicals are fun, right? You've got a lot of fire underneath you as you're trying to live sound mix, people singing, people dancing, and a live orchestra sometimes. Like there's just a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
I think design for that could be fun too. I just never felt like that. I mean, musicals are fun. There's a lot of speaking in it. I'd rather these beautiful pieces of human architecture dance and express themselves. Like that's just more interesting to me. As you can see with all my work, whether or not you like it or not, it's all very much tonality the same. It's directional, focusing on the shadow. I like that, especially in these moments, you can tell what's going on. You can tell ask you to guess the music, to guess the feeling, to guess what style of dance. Like you can see all that in an image.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just never really like reading plays. I'd rather just listen to music, and I'd rather just watch people move. And one of the things I love about dance is that like if you're willing to dance, you are giving up so much of your health, your well-being, your mental thing, and you're willing to kind of pitch in as a group. And I find that like the dance community is really supportive in that way.
For sure, definitely. For sure. So you're a teacher, obviously, doing online, and you've obviously switched to online, I'm guessing, right, for classes?
Yeah, so I just taught producing, and I've taught it live for the last 2 or 3 years, and now I'm teaching online, and it seemed to translate pretty well. It's just challenging, it's as anything else is challenging, but I think that teaching people to be creative and teaching people to be critical thinkers and teaching people how to always question things is a really easy translatable thing to online. So actually what my students have to do every week is exactly what you're doing, which is interview somebody. And I think that takes nothing, right? And it's actually now that all of us are used to doing these Zoom calls. So my students have interviewed some CEOs or some producers for major companies, theater and film. They are encouraged to say like, hey, you like that music video? I've never heard of it, but why don't you go after that director of photography or go after that director and say, I'm really inspired by your work. What was your path? Or what do you think about when you do these things? And that's really easy to teach. This movement in music class, I think, will be similar, where I'll show a lot of music videos. We'll talk about some dance film. We'll talk about some lighting design stuff and some creative stuff. And, you know, that stuff will translate. What's hard is like how to hang a light, right?
Yeah.
How to, you know, how does a light break apart? What does it feel like to hold something? What is the weight of that? You know, that's really hard. So I just did my first lighting design remotely through Stanford.
Nice.
We're able to control the lighting from one operator across the US.
Oh,
so
wow.
One's computer was on a network and we turn on and off their lights. And we're going to try to do that for the lighting class. We'll send everyone a lighting kit and they'll have their own LEDs in their bedroom. So like
nice.
turn your front light to a different color and then the lights around your room a different color.
That's cool. That's more than I've not done that in my technical theater class. But I mean, like, I love how, you know, people are being, you know, inventive in this new time, I think.
Well, especially in academia, you know, and this is why I try things while I was a professor at Stanford, is like, you can make lots of mistakes. And if you really think about it, only your friends will ever see it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You have at worst failed or made hundreds of people miserable, but you haven't really done it where you're losing your paycheck. You haven't done it where it's going to be written up in a newspaper. It's not ruined the name of the organization or the production. You're fine. So if you try something and it doesn't work, you tried and you learned and, you know, whatever. That's why, like, it's so difficult when you get out in the professional world to be like crazy inventive on things.
Yeah.
In these like high stakes areas. So
definitely.
Yeah. Enjoy your time in this playground you have as much as you can.
For sure. What if you give any advice to young producers or line designers? What would you give them? What would you say?
So the bunch of the different things that I say to any of my students is to ask a lot of questions. I think that there's no one that I know of who will just yell at you if you are curious about things. I think admitting that you don't know something and then asking for someone to show you is actually amazing. So if you do something wrong because you're too afraid to ask, that's problematic. I think that everyone should show up on time. And what I teach my students on time means is 15 minutes early. I think everyone should show up ready to work and be willing to kind of do whatever they can to pitch in. And what that ends up leading to is, as soon as there's a promotion available, you're going to look around the room and say, that person has been here all the time. That person has done the extra effort. That person has shown a willingness to ask questions when they don't know and to absorb the things that we're teaching them. I think that person should stick around longer. So now we've got a longer term job for you, or there's a job that gives you more opportunity, or now when I leave, I'm going to take you with you. The rest is, everyone has on their own. You know, you're walking out of college or high school or whatever with a lot of people who are also interested. But what's going to separate you from the pack is all this extra work, and I think that's really important.
Definitely, for sure. That was great info. That was great, insight. Thank you so much.
Sure, absolutely.
And thank you for talking to me today. It was a pleasure talking to you about lighting and producing and all the wonderful things that you do.
Thank you. Anytime you need something, I'm always happy to pitch in.
No problem. Thank you so much. And stay tuned for next episode of Tech Talk with Ethan. Thank you, guys.